good morning, YouTube viewers. And my name is Dennis Crosby. And thank you all for getting up. And like I said, we all doing this together. And it's Friday, so you know what I'm saying. We made it. We made it. And weekend is here. Some are working over the weekend, so I mean, either way around, it's here. We got a good one for today. Today uh, is a free mountain bike giveaway. So everybody who is watching, we're gonna pass out brand new mountain bikes. However, these mountain bikes only have one pedal. One pedal. Um, so you say to yourself, why would I want to bike a free bike and it only has one pedal? It's not gonna run right. Well, this is what this is all about today. So you're going to enjoy this because you're going to find out how to make that bike run. And today's topic is bad things. Bad things happen when you lose sight of your reality. And just like that bicycle is how we go through life. We forget about why, the problems are the way they are in our lives. And the way that I want to tackle this is to show that, your reality is important. Knowing who you are is important. Matter of fact, it's a proverb, and I'm going to give you that scripture. But this isn't about religion. It's about morals and values that, we need to have. And some of those morals and values come from all different sources of information. So never hold yourself to just one train of thought. Seek out and seek information from everywhere. It's the only way you get better. If you're sick or you're in the hospital, you'll do it. If you're sick, so apply that same principle, to your life when you're healthy and trying to get healthier, to help you to, be a better person and to have less stress. So, what that bicycle has to do with your reality, male and female. This goes for you because, the topic more or less is swaying to where, you have so many women and now young women saying how all men are bad and how all men are dogs. And, they still, from when we were young, they had that same mindset. But were men really bad? If you look back historically, were men really bad? Well, let me explain where this phenomenon, where this notion, and how this notion came about. Men of color are not bad. Men of color have been oppressed. And that's why we can't, we weren't able to completely fulfill all the responsibilities that we needed to. And we're going to start out with 40 acres and a mule also. We sit back and we want 40 acres and a mule. Well, let's talk about that also because all this stuff ties in. So, back in 1968, Lyndon B. Johnson, your president, signed the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. And that's a very important year because up until that point, anyone who is older knows people of color had homes. They had homes, single family homes, lots of them. And that wasn't something that they, that they wanted. The miracle was not, they still needed to oppress. And just like today, oppression is still here in certain ways. We're being oppressed, but we're doing it to one another now. Remember, it goes back to that program in your subconscious that keeps playing over and over and over. So back in 1968, that act tore down those houses. Well, first of all, they didn't allow money to go into them. No money to go into these neighborhoods. And when this act was signed and they tore these things down, it's ironic that in 1970, which is 2 years later, we had all the drugs, that crack cocaine that Ronald Reagan, president, was shipping into California. And that's where you get Rick Ross, you get all those ballers. And who did those guys work for? To destroy you? So, know what your reality is. Know why your reality is what it is. And like I said, when they drained these neighborhoods, they knew. They went across the country. It wasn't a thing where they sat back and said, hey, we're going to just do it to, this state. We'll let, no. This was this mass. It's, what I look at it as is mass extinction because it tore down families. And then what a lot of us don't realize is also is that and when that act was signed, it's when welfare came around. And no longer could the minority who was receiving any kind of benefits, the man could not be in the house. When I was a kid, my father used to hide, and my brothers and sisters can tell you. When I was a kid, my father couldn't have clothes in the house at a certain time of the month because they would walk through the house and look through everything. So when you have an absent father, where's that man going to be? If he's got to run every time, he's going to be out in the streets. So I mean, we can look at it as the choices that people take, but it's still an unfair advantage. And those men, to me, are not at fault because some of those men were the best men that I have ever met in my life. They helped me to be the person that I am today. So now, when we go on the woman's side, at that time, if you go back and you look at history, that's where all men are dogs came out. Right around the between 75 and 80, there was a push for it. So, when we sit back and, we judge, you're judging just like that broken bike, riding around with one wheel. Instead of looking at the reality to put the wheel back on and say, hey, look, I got to look into this. We're running on a program, and that program is in our subconscious. And that same program, we're passing off to our children. So that's why we have an obligation to really, really get back and to correct our lives, And by doing that, and by having the proper understanding of our lives and how we are to fit into this place called Earth, we become better. Knowledge is power. And, we can sit back and, we can say, hey, I'm going to look at this book because this book goes back 5,000 years. So that's as far as I can go. No more. Anything else outside of that, I don't want to know about. But that's your reality. 5,000 years. That's your reality. In a place that is over 1 million years old. And civilizations that are over 100,000 years old. So we can't look at society. We can't look around us and say, hey, why is this and why is that? It's because there's a disconnect in reality. So if there's a disconnect in our reality, how can we be successful in life? We're only running on, it's like running on half of your brain. So I say knowledge, build yourself, and take the time to sit down and read. How many, we hear about things about, genetically modified food. I'd say almost 90% of the food that we eat, genetically modified. And how many people really understand what that is? And how is that, why do we have such an obesity problem? Obesity is money. Fear is money. Lack of knowledge is money. And that's what gets us to fight amongst ourselves. This is a year where, all these different things are coming out. And we're just finding out how much ignorance there is in this world. Because the real reality is the whole West Coast from California all the way up to Washington State is burning. Most of it is burned. That's your reality. But how many people are, paying attention? It's like, oh, the election. And when you lose sight of what your reality is, then, how do we get strong? We'll always be stuck in a reality that, we're not looking in the right directions. And to go back to that scripture, know thyself. That's what that means. And it says to keep your heart, Proverbs 4:23. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. That's to know yourself. And because you know yourself, then everything else that comes outside of you is reality. And that your reality can no longer be shaken. So that aura gets passed on to your children and then their children. And that's what we have to do. We have to, become healthy. So everybody that has that bike with one pedal, do the work. Because life is work, just like a marriage is work, just like your job is work. But how much work do you do for your mind, your conscience, and what goes into it? Because that's the thing that changes. We change. We change the world. The world don't change us, because the world ain't going to do nothing for us. And we know this to be a fact. So I want everybody to be motivated. Take that time. We can continue to, post things about how things should be and, get the likes and be like, this is reality, this is reality. But is what you're saying what you're doing? Does it match what it is that you're doing to change your life? It's all good. But like I said, you go back and we say, hey, men are bad. But yet and still we don't realize that this was a plan. And we're living on a script, a program, just like in the Matrix. So, let's break out of that. Let's break out of being manipulated and brainwashed, because when we do that, you can't be hurt in a relationship. Your relationships will actually be better, because now you're built for success. So look at this as a way to build yourself for success, because the people who are most successful are the people who understand how to program their minds. It's the difference between the wealthy and the poor. And lastly, I want to give you a thought. Leave you with a thought. You got a lot of people out here, Oprah and, some of these other people, and they're doing Peary, they're doing all these charter schools. Wow, good thing, educating the youth. Wow. But realistically, wouldn't it made more sense to take that $1 million and give it to the local bank to say they're going to give it to, people who, can, in that community, to build small business, and take the existing schools in which they were, they tear down to make room, or they use them, renovate them for the new school, but to build the businesses around it, build that community around it, invest in the community around it, the people. But now when you look around, you got these nice new schools in the middle of a ghetto. In the middle of a ghetto. How does that work? So let's all wake up. Wake up to see that, the manipulation is on all levels. And like I said, go into all my videos and, we'll be talking about this stuff. So, with that, I want you guys to get on your day. I don't want to keep you guys, and, thank you for, tuning in, because together we're going to rethink, reshape. We're gonna rebuild our subconscious. We're gonna build our subconscious so that we can consciously, take care of our children and build for their future. So with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings.